what's so interesting about this is that this is like some of the great ideas of history that, like, they were before the American Revolution. It didn't just get born in George Washington's head or Thomas Jefferson's head. There were people all up and down the eastern seaboard, and even people in England who were thinking and writing the same things without having any idea of each other's existence, or that other people were thinking and writing the same thing. Well, that's what's happened with restorative justice, because we are realizing that the greatest threat, again, to democracy is this sense of powerlessness, because that leads to fear. It leads to endemic fear, and fear is the father or the mother or the parent of fascism. And that's always the shadow lurking in the background, is fascism. We get real comfortable with what we got, and we get real easily threatened by anybody who's different. And that's really what gave birth to fascism. And so we have to be careful how we exercise our power, and we have to be careful to make sure that we have some power to exercise. I see restorative justice in many ways as a counterpoint to the sense of powerlessness that sort of has crept up on us here. You know, if you just think about the current system, and if you just think about our evolution as a species, then the reason that we do things the way we do those reasons become more apparent. Like, we put people in prison. We used to send people out to live in the wilderness with wild animals when their behavior became unacceptable. We just banished them. That was banishment. You go live in the forest with the saber-toothed tigers. And then there got to be not enough forests or too many people. And so we had to come up with other ways that would work other than banishment. And really, prison is just a contemporary form of banishment. But what we do, we take people from healthy communities and send them to a community of criminals where their negative behavior is reinforced. And then come back to our communities, and we think they're going to come back fixed. And they're not fixed. They're not. It's almost, you almost never find anybody who comes out of prison better than they went in. And so restorative justice, in my opinion, becomes primarily a problem-solving modality. How do you solve the problem? You know, how do you solve the problem? Well, let's see. The way we're doing it now clearly doesn't work, and it costs a lot of money. It's going to cost even more money if we keep doing it this way, because we'll have to have more jail cells and keep people longer and longer and longer and longer. And if you notice, crime is almost always a function of poverty, child abuse. Our system is based on the idea of retribution or payback. Where you commit a crime, we're gonna zap you for it. We're gonna hit you upside the head for it. You know, put you in prison, put you in jail, fine you, make you go to meetings, make you do something. It's a compulsion-oriented concept. And the jails are getting full, and the prisons are full. And what happens is we take somebody and send them a couple hundred miles away to live in a community of criminals and expect they're going to come back fixed. Because everybody knows that people learn how to act from the institutions of community. Home, family, extended family, neighborhood, church, school. So what do we do with people who didn't learn that? We send them to live in a community of criminals. And when they get out, why are we surprised that they begin to commit acts, criminal acts more seriously than they did before they went? Because they're better at it now. They've been around people who have reinforced that value system. And so we're in many ways cutting off our noses to spite our faces the way we do it now. And we have been for a long time. It just doesn't make any sense. And it'd be great if it worked. And there are people who never need to get out of prison, who we need to put there and keep forever because they're dangerous. They're psychopaths and people whose presence on the street would mean that the rest of us couldn't afford to sleep at night. So, and we need to make sure there's room for them. And so those whose behavior can be changed in some less expensive, more efficient way, in a way that is more positive for us and for them, we ought to do that. Well, it just makes sense. And restorative justice is the best thing that I have found in a, well, close to 40-year career of dealing with behavior issues that comes closer than anything that I've found to being the answer to the problem, to the, the quest for the holy grail that we're all looking for. How do we live together in peace? What restorative justice really does is employ the healing faculty of other people in a group setting with all sorts of safeguards. For example, just nuts and bolts kinds of things. We never use restorative practices to determine questions of innocence or guilt. That's not the role of restorative justice, in my opinion, because the current criminal justice process has no peer at fact-finding. What it's really good at, and all it's really good at, is figuring out what are the facts. What we do with the facts is where we fall down in the criminal justice process. But restorative justice, in my opinion, has to deal with the disposition of the case after a plea of guilty. And that, I don't see that it's possible to do better than the system that has grown up of determining issues of innocence or guilt. We had one year in Austin in which we had like 51 murders. I think that was 1990, but I'm not completely sure of the year, but I am of the number. There were 51 murders, and we reduced that. That was reduced to less than 25 over a several-year period, and I don't know if restorative justice had anything to do with that. I would like to take full credit for it, but that's not possible in the area of criminal justice statistics. Nobody knows why things happen the way they do, but our crime rate did a nosedive. We started doing all kinds of things that would, neighborhood conference committees, as I've mentioned before, for sentencing juveniles, and we had a program that we called Neighborhood Protection Action Committees, where people would get together and talk about the crime problem in their neighborhood. And sometimes there wasn't a crime problem, and sometimes there was, and then there wasn't. And what that does is it gets people used to kind of watching each other's houses and stuff. And it gets them out from in front of the television and outside meeting each other. And it builds community. And really the secret to crime prevention and crime control is a strong community. People want to be strong. People don't like the feeling of powerlessness, and they don't like being afraid. They don't like to not know their neighbors. We would have neighborhood functions, ice cream socials and things where people would get to know, you just meet each other. Nobody wants to take anybody else to raise, as we say in Texas. But it's nice to know who lives next door in case you might need some help, or they might need some help. So the whole idea of community, that's the thing that we have stressed. We call the Community Justice Council. We call the plan we wrote the Community Justice Plan. We call what we did Community Justice in Austin. It really was a powerful effort to reweave the fabric of community. We said that. We said what we're trying to do here is reweave the fabric of community. And it sort of has a life of its own. People get to where they like to get together, and they like each other, and they get interested in each other's lives and talk to each other and stuff. Basically, what we're trying to do is use the status of being a human in a positive way. There are certain things that people naturally like to do. They like each other. We're social creatures, social animals. And we like to feel safe, and we like to feel powerful in ourselves. We don't like the feeling of powerlessness. We are a muscular people.